Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. This show was originally slated for a couple weeks ago, but due to technical difficulty, we're doing it today. We're going to be talking with Rodgers. She is the author of the book and the director of the movie, which actually, I was just looking, I didn't realize that Rob Wolf was also part of this project called Sacred Cow. And we're going to be talking about why meat is good for the planet when it's done right. And then later in the show, we're going to be joined by the clinical director of Marek Health to talk about testosterone replacement therapy. Before we do any of that, I have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods, makers of the Tasty Pastry. It was designed to be a step up from the Pop-Tart and actually tastes a lot better. It tastes like real pastry. Less than 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high-quality protein, 4 to 5 net carbs. Also, check out their new sweet roll. If you loved Cinnabon, you're going to love the sweet roll because it tastes like a Cinnabon. And once again, 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of carbs. Great stuff. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary 10 to let them know that you got it. The news here at Superhuman Radio. And let me get my guest on. I have to apologize to him. You were right. This interview was supposed to start at 12:30.
No problem.
So I'll get you off by 1:40 because I know you have other podcasts to do. But I'm so used to doing this show. By the way, last week was my 17-year anniversary. At 1 o'clock. And it wasn't conveyed to me well enough. I'm a bit of an ADHD type of a human being. And if you don't snap my head and make me look at you and say, now this is how it's going to be, it goes right over my head. So I apologize. You were absolutely right. It was supposed to be 12:30.
That's okay.
Oh, and you're not Memo Canli. Boy, I'm batting 1,000. It's time for me to get off the air. What made you want to do this? Were you just frustrated with the misinformation about beef out there?
It's a little long of a story. I'll try to give you the short version, but basically, I was studying to become a dietitian. It was a career change in my 30s, and was living on a farm, raising vegetables and sheep and pigs and chickens. And as I was going through the education to become a dietitian, I just kept hearing, being a vegetarian or a vegan was totally okay by my professors, but cutting out processed foods was cutting out entire food groups, and that wasn't okay. And I was already in the paleo kind of low carb world, entering my training to become a dietitian. I became a dietitian just so that I could have that degree and work more with medical doctors and kind of have more credibility and take medical insurance. So I wasn't doing it for the education. I was doing it for the credential of RD. And so many things were just not making sense to me, for, just the typical advice that dietitians give. Everything in moderation just does not work for people, because what is moderation? And in our modern food environment where everything is just so unnatural, moderation of Oreos, moderation of pizza, like what moderation of what,
Yeah, right.
But then this conversation just started escalating about what diet is ideal for not only human health, but planetary health. And eating less or no meat became the dominant idea. And then, the rise of all these alternative meats started coming. And I just started noticing more and more people who are uneducated on real nutrition and also uneducated in how sustainable food production works. You have to have animals for a sustainable regenerative type farm and for healthy humans. So it was just driving me crazy that nobody was stepping up with any sort of reasonable conversation about this. And so Rob Wolf had become a good friend of mine ever since I first read his book. I got connected with him, and he was also very, very interested in sustainable food systems. And so we actually had the idea for this book years before we actually started writing it, because he just felt the timing wasn't quite right for it. And that, even though he and I were interested in sustainability, in 2010, 2011, it just really wasn't something that was really talked about until more recently. And so started writing the book finally. And then as I was writing the book, yet another vegan documentary had come out where, it's being shown in schools, telling parents that feeding your kids sausage for breakfast is the same as giving them cigarettes. And you're just, and I thought, well, this book is going to be important, but if I really want to reach people on a mass scale, I need to make a documentary too. So I did a crowdfunding campaign. I raised money. I have no background in filmmaking. I figured it out all along the way and released the book and film, unfortunately, in the middle of COVID, but also it was helpful because I think people saw just how important buying from local sustainable farms really is during COVID, and like why we need more regional food systems. So it kind of worked out. And hopefully I'm changing the narrative a little bit about, how to feed people moving forward in the future.
Yeah. And so, boy, there's so much to untie in there. Just a brief discussion. I've been a vocal advocate of raw unpasteurized milk for as long as I've been doing. Actually, before I started doing the show in 2005, I was buying raw unpasteurized milk from a Mennonite farmer in my area. I'm lucky to live in Kentucky, and there's a lot of rural areas here. John Moody became a friend of mine. I'm sure everybody knows John. And I started to kind of, you see through the narrative. It's like, wait, my kids aren't getting sick. And in fact, my kids aren't getting sick when everybody else in school is sick. Like, could there be some magic? And one of my first guests on the show was Ron Schmidt when he wrote the book, The Untold Story of Milk. And it's like, when you hear why we pasteurize milk today, you realize it has nothing to do with the quality of milk and health. It has everything to do with corporations wanting to take over the milk industry because everybody drank milk. So I love what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's really what's happening right now too, is there's so much profit to be made in processing, nutrient poor foods like grains and soy and converting them into these protein alternatives. I mean, Beyond Meat, burger patties are twice as expensive as organic grass-fed beef if you just go to walmart.com and look at it per pound. But Beyond Burger is sold in half-pound packages, and they're very large packages. So it almost looks like you're getting more than the 1 pound brick of, beef that you would be getting. So this is 100% driven by large corporations looking to make a profit and using climate change as the proxy for that.
It's terrible. And the reality is that cows, for instance, we've talked about this on the show in the past. The fact that cows graze actually contributes to removing a lot of the carbon from the air. And so, when I distill this whole thing down, what I realize now is that the internet has been both a blessing and a curse, because there's so much information to consume. Like I started saying about 10 years ago, the new evolutionary selection pressure is where you get your information from. It's not famine, you know what I mean? It's not disease. It's like you're going to listen to some talking head on the Today Show that popcorn is a good thing to eat right before bed. I've actually heard that, stuck in my mind. I actually heard them tell people that. And I'm like, so this is what it is. It's like now there's so much information and people are so willing to educate themselves about anything that they just look like for a top line narrative summary. And they're like, okay, I'm on that. That's the new thing now. Mm-hmm. And it's scary because, we are going to make the entire population sick and dying way before the planet gets too hot to inhabit.
Yes, and when you look at worldwide nutrient deficiencies, it's iron, it's B12, it's zinc, it's vitamin A. These are all things best found from animal source foods, and they're not just happening in low and middle income countries. They're happening in the U.S. and the U.K. And it's, eating less meat is not going to make us any healthier at all.
In fact, anytime you see Sally Struthers begging you to feed a family of 6 in Biafra, and they show you these children with severely distended stomachs, that's actually a phenomenon called kwashiorkor. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Kwashiorkor. Yep.
Yeah, but what the body does, the body wants protein. It needs protein. So it changes the diversity of the microbiome in the gut, and it actually causes the gut to enlarge, to try to get every single bit of protein out of the rice pablum that they're feeding these poor kids. When what they need to do is there was someone who started an organization where you could donate money and buy a cow. And these were not the types of cows, Holsteins. This was like one of those Brahmin cows. They had the horns, because they can pull wagons, they can pull tree stumps out of ground. They give milk, you breed them, and then you drink the milk and you eat the beef. And this was a dynamic change, not only to people's health in these rural countries, these underserved countries, but also economically. They were making money. And it's like no one's paying attention to the facts anymore. I don't understand it.
Yeah, you're talking about Heifer International, and it's an organization that I work with often. They're one of the few nonprofits that really gets what I do. And I actually also started a nonprofit called the Global Food Justice Alliance, where I advocate for the inclusion and access to animal source foods like milk, meat, and eggs for everybody. And I push back against the narrative that we all need to go plant-based. And we just started also adding a component where we're actually getting protein to people who need food and not just calories, because the conversation needs to get away from let's just get people fed with calories to let's nourish people, because people who are going to food banks and food pantries, protein is a thing they're not getting there. It's perishable, it's expensive. And so we're actually buying good meat from producers and getting it to hungry people. So that's part of the mission of the Global Food Justice Alliance, in addition to the education that we put out about the importance nutritionally and also to livelihoods, to rural economies, right. Especially to women and children who are the most nutrient deficient. That animal source foods are the most important for cognitive development. And it's what made us human. Our bodies need animal source foods.
I was just going back and forth with somebody on one of the social media platforms today, talking about what happened between Australopithecus robustus and Australopithecus africanus. Africanus started to eat meat and bone marrow, and their guts got smaller, their jaws got narrower, but their brain got bigger. I had this conversation years ago with Leslie Aiello. She used to run the Wenner-Gren Foundation in Manhattan. And people don't understand. They always want to say, well, we're supposed to be vegans. You know, we look at our digestive system. Australopithecus africanus outlived Australopithecus robustus while it went through these changes from eating meat, made its brain bigger. Its jaw got narrow because it didn't have to chew bark to get, you know, a microgram of protein out of it. And it gave us the platform to become Homo sapiens. I mean, they really our brains started being bigger and different. And when you try to explain this to people, they get locked up in this. And I know what it's driven from. It's driven from sensitivity for animals' lives. You know, we superimpose our thoughts, our wants, our needs, and we think animals are the same way. And maybe they are, don't get me wrong, but we die also. You know what I mean? It's not like we live forever and we're just exploiting animals. How do we make the shift in people who are conscientious objectors of animals?
Well, I think it's important to explain that pulling meat away from people who need those nutrients is actually elitist, and it's moral and cultural imperialism. We can't, just because we're uncomfortable with whatever, how animals are produced, doesn't mean that we have the right to tell other people that they're not allowed to feed their children this. So, you know, there's a reason why our brains need DHA and B12. B12 and DHA are nutrients that you can't get from plants, and it can cause permanent brain damage in vegan children if they're not given access to these nutrients. So we evolved because we eat meat to have the brains that we have, and we absolutely require them for you know, proper brain and eye growth. We have to have animal source protein. And so if someone doesn't like how animals are raised and they have the privilege to go to Whole Foods and put together a meat-free diet from all the different, you know, aspects, not everybody has that privilege nor desire.
Well, let's also say and then stop at GNC on the way to buy certain vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are devoid in their meat. Based meat. And let's not also forget, we've done several good shows that show that plant-based protein is far inferior to meat-based protein. In fact, you have to eat like 3 or 4 times more and then find mixtures of plant-based to get a full amino acid profile. Because at the end of the day, a protein comes down to amino acids. And so, you know, now come back to me and tell me how our prehistoric ancestors achieved those things that would plant-based diet and not die from nutrient deficiencies, because they didn't have a GNC. They didn't have pea protein and rice protein sitting next to each other on the shelf. It's like the idea that we are supposed to be vegan falls apart immediately, and you can't defend it.
You really can't. I don't care what people choose to feed themselves if they're consenting adults. As a mom and dietitian, I do have a major problem with people feeding their children a vegan diet because it's not a biologically appropriate diet for humans. And there are nutrients that these kids can't get. There was even a study showing that an 8-year-old in India physically cannot eat enough lentils to get his protein requirement. It's just too hard. I mean, kids are squirmy. To get the iron, to get the protein into a kid that they need to grow, meat is such a perfect, compact way of getting those nutrients into a kid. That's why it's called nutrient dense. And for somebody who's overweight, the great thing about eating a steak is that, you know, you can get 30 grams of perfect amino acids from 180 calories worth of steak versus 30 grams of so-so protein from 750 calories, of beans and rice. So you'd have to actually eat more calories to get the same amount of protein, and you're still not gonna get the amino acids nor the micronutrients that meat can provide.
How has people like Dr. Sean Baker helped the cause? You know, he's the carnivore guy. He's been carnivore now, only eating beef for 6 or 7 or even 8 years now. He regularly posts his lab work. He doesn't have high cholesterol. He had a calcium score done recently at 0. So he is literally the poster child for the lies that we've been told. Is he and other carnivore advocates? I know Rob even moved more carnivore because some of the things in the paleo diet was still, causing him some problems that he's talked about on many podcasts with his gut. Are these admissions that, hey, beef is not only not bad, it's good, and it actually could be the only superfood on the planet. Like, you could eat it every day for every meal for years and thrive. And now we have Jordan Peterson, admitting it. Has that helped anything? Has anything changed since this?
Well, I think that, I'm friends with Sean. Rob is my best friend. I think that it's been interesting to follow the carnivore community. I think where it really helps people is with severely damaged guts or really bad autoimmune conditions. I actually, as a practitioner, have used it with compulsive overeating. So I had a client that, just really needed that level of restriction because she was just so triggered by all the other foods in her fridge that limiting herself to meat by her own choice was just the way she could heal herself of her food addictions. And so, look, I think the goal should be to eat as many foods that don't give you problems as possible. Right. For most people, that's going to be an 80-20 type, paleo-ish, whole 30-ish type of a diet with 20% maybe more modern type foods. Rob has some health issues. I have some health issues with celiac disease.
Right.
And so, my percentage of animal source foods for my body is probably higher than what some other people might do better on. So I think there's a wide continuum of the types of foods that people can eat and be healthy. But once you start to be broken a little bit more, you may find that having more animal source foods, just because they're so easy to digest and, contain less anti-nutrients and less problems, you may do better. So, but in my advocacy work where I try to just talk about the nutritional benefits of meat, I mean, that's already really sort of heretic talk, right?
Right.
And so, I don't necessarily endorse that all people go carnivore. I think that's a little extreme. I try to, talk about balance, but that meat is a really important part of a healthy diet and definitely should not be something that's excluded.
I have instinctively eaten carnivore for over the past decade. Every day I eat a pound of beef, generally ground beef, because I feel like I digest it faster. I love pork. I actually think pork is a more appropriate animal protein for humans when you look at the fact that pigs and humans share a lot of similarities biologically. And so, but the problem with pigs is what you feed them. I mean, I used to live in Las Vegas, and the pig farmers out far up in Nevada used to come to the casinos and pick up their food waste for free. And, and it was cigarette butts in it, and they would just bring it out there, and the pigs would eat it all, the cooked sausages, everything. So I think becoming more sensitive to pigs being allowed a natural foraging diet is important to the quality of the meat. But now we have lots of companies that supply that. White Oak Pastures is a sponsor of mine. I love their stuff. And I don't feel guilty because they have like a negative carbon footprint as a farm. That's amazing. Shameless plug. But I have been instinctive about eating more meat. The one thing I can't give up is oatmeal and raisins and cinnamon in the morning. But when I start eating high carbs, which is now the holidays, I immediately, like in 2 days, my stomach is distended. I look like I'm 4 months pregnant. And you can't tell me that something about carbs doesn't work for me, especially starchy carbs. I can eat plenty of green leafy vegetables. That doesn't do it. But when I start eating the bread and stuff like that, which is typical of this holiday, my body reacts immediately. And this happens to other people too, but they just ignore it and go on.
Well, if we're looking at the hierarchy of meat and, what is the healthiest meats, seafood, organ meats, and ruminant meat. So that's, red meat from sheep and goats and cattle are really the most nutrient dense meats that we can be eating. They are about 30% more nutritious than chicken. And the great thing about grazing animals is that they can turn land that we can't even use for crops into protein. And even when they're finished on a feedlot, you mentioned the food waste thing. For every pound of plant-based protein, there are 4 pounds of fibrous waste. Now, that's, the pea hulls from the pea protein industry, the extra fiber that they take out to make protein powders and proteins, plant-based proteins. We can either let that sit in a pile and emit greenhouse gases, or we can feed that to cattle who can actually turn that into iron and B12 and the perfect amino acid profile. So if we're looking at a more circular food economy, we actually need to be utilizing that food waste and upcycling it into protein. And the best way to do that is through ruminant animals like cattle.
Yeah, I mean, corn stalk is considered a grass. Excuse me. I think the farmers call it silage or something like that. But we take the corn off and, make ethanol out of it and crap foods with it. And the corn stalk just dies, and they feed those to cows. The cows turn the corn stalk into protein. I know your point is exactly. And, I'm so frustrated because someone just put this up, and I want to put it up here. But Sean Wasson says, he's watching on YouTube, it's strange how food has become politicized. Vegans equal saving the environment, when in fact they aren't. No one ever talks about the contribution to greenhouse gases from overspray of petroleum-based herbicides and pesticides.
Well, or they might say that it's less, right? So I just got back from the UN climate change conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And I was really the only nutritionist that was there, certainly that I met. And I attended numerous talks about how meat is emitting the most greenhouse gases. I mean, these people have no education in nutrition. They're not talking about micronutrient deficiencies. And they're also so fixated on carbon. They're not looking at all the other benefits that cattle have, micronutrients, bioavailable protein, ecosystem function, just overall function, because even cattle that are finished on feedlots, they're still starting out on grazing land. And there's ecosystem benefits to that. There's actually was a study showing that every head of beef cattle, steer, actually gives us about $1,000 worth of ecosystem services through their grazing. They're cutting down on the kindling that starts fire. They're increasing biodiversity. They're providing habitat, like all this stuff. They're important for rural economies. I mean, we're not talking about, the consolidation of monocropping actually destroys rural America. We need more small and medium-sized businesses, and ranching families are that. So there's just so many more benefits that we get from cows that we're not taking into account when we only look at carbon emissions.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break. But before we do that, I want to mention to the audience that you can get the book Sacred Cow, and you can also watch the documentary. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/Sacred Cow, and also one of the organizations that Diana is affiliated with is the Global Food Justice Alliance. I like that. I think this is ridiculous what's going on today with food. You can go to sustainabledish.com, globalfoodjustice.org, or sacredcow.info to learn more about that. Also, There is a book available called Sourcing Ethical Meat, which, and it's such a sad story that we have to justify eating meat. They really got this narrative flipped really, really bad. And I would imagine they can get that at your website. Is that right?
Yep, they can buy that on sacredcow.info.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more of Diana Rodgers. Stay with us. There are lots of concerns about food supply today. That's why you need White Oak Pastures. White Oak Pastures will deliver food right to your doorstep. You don't even have to go out and be disappointed by shopping in grocery stores. The finest beef, pork, lamb, duck, and more can be found at White Oak Pastures. And now they even have seafood. And best of all, White Oak Pastures has a negative carbon footprint, which means that you don't have to feel guilty for eating your ribeye. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 15% off.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. P3OM from Bioptimizers is a patented prebiotic and probiotic supplement with Lactobacillus plantarum OM. It has now been upgraded to P3OM 2.0 with the addition of a superfood formulation that makes it 2 times stronger, as well as optimizes L. plantarum's strength. So it's more powerful than ever, which means that not only will it help you completely digest all animal proteins, it also reduces cortisol, causes deep relaxation and better sleep, and reduces stress. Go to shrnetwork.biz/P3-OM today and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. So we have a problem in society today. I went to parochial school when I was a kid, and I was not an easy kid to deal with. I just wasn't. I was more interested in making my friends laugh than learning anything in school. And but I remember telling my mother a lie about my report card, because I mysteriously lost a report card, and I knew I didn't lose it. I put it back on my desk at school and left it there. And my father, he gave me what would be considered today a child abuse spanking when they found out. But you know what? I never lied to them after that. I just didn't, because I knew that the repercussions of getting caught lying were far worse than the embarrassment and the humiliation of telling them what I did. And I see that lesson that my father taught me was painful, because whenever he spanked me, he always came back and he felt bad about it. But Carmine knew that if he was going to put a useful adult male out into the world, there were certain standards you had to learn to live by. Now I see today where lying is customary everywhere, politics, and like the story you just told about going to the climate change conference in Egypt. And these people there, they're clearly lying. Like they're saying that, Well, they're not lying.
Well, I think that they are illogical. I think that they are not all lying. I think a lot of them really do believe that they're saving the world and that they know better. And that they're actually going to go around and by imposing their moral beliefs and their emotion about eating meat on other people, that they're going to save them. I really do think the majority of them believe that. They're quite passionate about it. These are, most of the ethical vegan folks out there do truly believe that it's wrong to raise animals, to kill them, and to eat them. And I get where that comes from. That comes from this complete dissociation from the fact that humans are animals, that we require animal source foods, and that this is a natural thing that should be done, that death happens to everybody, that death is a natural process.
Right.
It doesn't mean the end of the line. It's just part of a circle.
Right.
And, we're taught in our modern culture that death should be avoided. I mean, even in the health space, we've got longevity experts, right? How can I live the longest possible and cheat death? None of us are cheating death. But I do believe this comes from a denial of death. And also, their only exposure to animals. And I've talked with Will Harris, is a good friend of mine from White Oak Pastures. And we've talked about how, most people's only exposure to animals is as pets, when we treat our pets as children, instead of, watching grandma go in the backyard and grab the chicken and kill it for dinner. Like, we're just not exposed to that anymore. So, there's this fundamental disconnect where we believe that we are not nature, we are superior to nature.
But when you bring a lot of these compelling facts to a vegan, they move forward. And that's the problem, I guess, I have. I get it. I get really feeling in your heart you're doing something good. But then when somebody shows you, it doesn't work that way, and you dig your heels in and go, yes, it does. Like, at what point
nothing works with an ethical vegan? In fact, but I do have an interesting book, and it's called, it's by a philosophy professor at Drexel University, Andrew Smith. And it's called a critique of the moral defense of vegetarianism. And he was vegan. He's an ethical vegan. And he actually started to write a thesis on why it's important to be an ethical vegan. And he talked himself out of it in the writing of it. Because he realized, but in general, I don't try to sway ethical vegans because it's futile. But what I do try to do is talk to people who are reducers, because that's really the biggest problem we have right now in our culture, is people reducing their meat intake. Very few are actually completely rejecting it. But the reducers are doing this because of perceived health benefits and cost benefits. But if they really understood that, per nutrient, meat is quite affordable, and that the health information that they're hearing is completely wrong, then, we can get them. But, as this comment here is, it's their religion. I don't try to argue people out of their religion. You're never going to argue,
right,
that to someone who's whatever religion, that based on facts, that their religion is wrong. That's never worked in the whole history of humankind.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. It's funny. One of the things that humans are endowed with, and I don't know that deer don't have this either, but we have magical thinking. I mean, every day somebody starts to smoke, and every day somebody knows, that same person knows people who have died of lung cancer, but to them they say, not me. And that, we have magical thinking, which has been a superpower for us, because we've endeavored things that we never thought we could. But then when we use magical thinking on topics like this, you're relying on fantasy, and fantasy. When you rely on fantasy in your life, it never works out good.
But I mean, even money is a fantasy, right? Me believing that $1 is worth 5 bananas. That is a fantasy too. So, we're all living, we all have different levels of magic that we're believing in.
Yeah. I really believe the gift my mother gave me, which made me a very unpopular person, is critical thinking. You have to think critically. You have to apply the facts. You have to search for the facts first. You have to educate yourself about the facts, and then you have to apply them. And you have to be willing to apply them regardless of where they take you and how unpopular you become. Like you talk about religion. I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic. I'm Italian, but I started to see the holes in religion really early on that made it very, very hard for me to believe any of it. And I don't begrudge people who need to have that belief that there's more after this. And in fact, I feel that if you start living your life like there's not more after this, you may get more accomplished in this life and take it more seriously. But that's my own thing. Look, I know that you have to go. You have another podcast to do, right? I'm so glad that I got you on the show. I love what you're doing. And if I can ever be of any help, please let me know. Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I was also raised Catholic, and I'm no longer Catholic, but religion is just one of those things that's just really, it's very personal. Everyone's own moral and ethical compass is personal to them. And so facts don't always work on them. But if you're looking at someone that has reduced their meat intake for health reasons or for other reasons, then you have a little more leeway in there. Oh, and I have a resource for folks. The holidays are coming up, and there's those uncomfortable conversations at the dinner table with that plant-based sister-in-law. And if people go to globalfoodjustice.org and sign up for my newsletter, I actually have a meat facts cheat sheet that they can use with responses to all the common concerns about eating meat.
That's awesome. I'm going to download that too. I'm going to download it because I like annoying people. I do it for a hobby. All right, listen, Diana, thanks for being here. Take care, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take one quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking, over the years, 17 on the show, as I said before. And over the years, I have so many people who reach out to me and they say, I want to get on testosterone. I'm 56 years old. I'm 60 years old. I go to my doctor. My doctor says, oh, no, your testosterone's fine for a 60-year-old man. Or they say, nah, you don't need testosterone. And they're stuck. They're stuck because they live in a particular city. They want to explore the possibility of testosterone, maybe give it a run for a few months and see what it feels like, but they can't find a doctor locally to help them. That's all changed. That's changed with Marek Health. We're going to talk about this in just a couple of minutes. If you're one of these people who's been discouraged by your primary care physician and left without options, you now have options. They come to you. How about that? Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Never before has a product been so appropriately named as Botanic Tonics Feel Free. This plant-based elixir combines a variety of different effective compounds, all from raw plant materials that at different doses provide you with completely different experiences. A third of a bottle puts you in the zone and makes you very focused and is ideal for a non-stimulating pre-workout. It also has a mild analgesic effect for us older lifters who have soreness and little pains and aches that keep us from training as ferociously as we want. A half a bottle will create a mild euphoric effect that will allow you to forego consuming alcohol, but still be socially lubricated and have fun. I have never had a product deliver on its name the way Botanic Tonics Feel Free does, and I won't ever be without it, and you shouldn't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/feelfree and use the code SHR40 for 40% off your first order. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. There have been no real breakthroughs in resistance training for over 200 years. Whether it's pulleys or free weight, they all depend on gravity and the angles associated with gravity's effect directly on the weight. All of that has changed with the ARX machine. ARX stands for adaptive resistance. The ARX machine uses a 25 horsepower motor. You are literally fighting against a 25 horsepower motor, so every single rep is your 1 rep maximum at that moment in time. But ARX leverages another technique that has been known to produce rapid muscle gains and strength, and that is it leverages the eccentric or negative portion of the rep, which completely blows every other exercise and resistance training product out of the water. Go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX and discover the future of resistance training. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/MyPillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. Marek Health is a premium telehealth platform that connects customers with partnered providers from the comfort of your home. Marek provides concierge service with your very own patient care provider as your health advocate. You'll go over all your needs and goals from improving sexual function, hair loss prevention, increased muscle, fat loss, and overall improved performance. Prescribed treatment options can be ordered and shipped directly to you if you meet the requirements, all from the comfort of your home. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Marek Health. That's MarekHealth and order your comprehensives and get 10% off with code SHR. Don't forget to add the lab analysis to have results reviewed with potential over-the-counter supplements or treatment recommendations. That's shrnetwork.biz/Marek Health and use code SHR at checkout. Or order your own desired labs with code SHR and get 10% off your first lab order.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the world.
Welcome back. So you and I have never met before. You have to turn your speakers down. To your my voice coming to you is too loud, and it's feeding back. Okay. Turn it down. More. Let's see where we are. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. How's it going, Carl?
Okay, that's perfect. Nice to meet you. So help me out here. I want to pronounce your name Memo. What's
Memo.
Your first name? Memo. Okay. And Italian, I'm Italian, and you may be too. Canli, is that Italian?
It's Turkish.
Oh, okay. Well, I know if I have a friend from New York, and his name is Memo, and his name is spelled the same. Welcome to the show, nonetheless. Welcome to the show, and
Thank you so much,
as one of our new sponsors, welcome to the show. The story that I just told about people reaching out to me and wanting to get on testosterone, being told by their primary care physician that their testosterone levels are fine for their age, or you don't really need testosterone. That's got to be a common theme with men who show up at Marek Health.
Absolutely. So Marek Health is a telemedicine platform that's focused primarily on preventative medicine, but a lot of what we do is hormone replacement therapy for both men and women. We see a lot of men with low testosterone levels that may not necessarily be below an arbitrary quote unquote reference range, but they exhibit the phenotype and a lot of the symptoms associated with low testosterone. And they see tremendous benefits from replacement to that of a young, healthy adult.
So let's talk about the ranges. In the 17 years I've been doing this show, the low end of testosterone has dropped 3 times. When I first started doing the show, the low end of testosterone was considered 480 nanograms a deciliter. Then somewhere along the line, it became 420. And I think today it's it's 380 or maybe 320 or something like that. I'm not sure about that, but I know that it's dropped 3 times. And I know that men's testosterone levels are falling in modern day populations. And what people need to realize is those bottoms and tops, the highs and lows of a testosterone assay, are the result of epidemiologists looking at the population, and we're looking at a stimulation. So theoretically, yeah, your testosterone is right where it needs to be for the sick population, but a healthy population would have higher testosterone. We know this from years past. We know. And there's actually calls to action right now by groups of people who are saying, we're waiting for the planet to get hot, but men won't be able to father children very soon. And we will have a dive in the population just because of testosterone levels. Anything I say there a lie?
Absolutely. You're right on the money. It's estimated that men's sperm counts could become a real problem as early as 2045, where we could run into major fertility issues that would be unable to sustain the planet Earth. So there's a lot of concern here, and those reference ranges, I think, are going to continue dropping. We know that the median testosterone level in the US has dropped almost 50% in just the last 40 years, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Well, Memo, look at who the PDE5 inhibitor products are being marketed to today. They're not old guys like me. They're young guys. They're guys in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're marketing Hims. Hims targets them. A lot of these companies target young guys who are already having erectile dysfunction. I mean, my God, this is the canary in the mine. We're not paying attention. Men are under attack in modernization today. We're seen as too aggressive. We're seen as the reasons wars happen, which it's not men. Men go fight wars, and so do women now. But I mean, more men are institutionalized. More men suffer from alcohol and drug abuse. More men are more commit suicide every year than women. Men are a endangered species. We should be thinking about, what do we do? Because all those women out there who think you don't need a man. Men are firefighters, men are soldiers, men do hard labor. Women don't do that stuff. I'm sorry if you're going to get pissed off what I'm saying, but the reality is you need men. Even if you don't want to procreate, you need men, and men are under attack from chemical pesticides and hormone mimicking agents in the population, to men do things that basically self-castrate them, the types of drugs they use, the types of foods they eat. They want to be vegan. Vegan men can't maintain an erection. That's one thing we didn't talk about with Diana Rodgers. So we need to stand up for men. Need somebody to do that nowadays. We really do.
Yeah, I think society needs strong men. And I think all those things you mentioned are negatively impacting the ability for men to be strong. There's a lot of issues to unpack there. Great book is the work by Dr. Shana Swan, for example, talking about those endocrine disrupting chemicals. But really, it's a barrage from all angles.
And we can sit here and split hairs. Why are men's testosterone levels dropping? But the thing that solves the problem is testosterone replacement therapy. If you're in your 40s and things aren't happening right for you anymore, get on testosterone. I'm going to tell this story. I told this story back in 2005 when I started doing this show. I admit that I was using some performance enhancing drugs and I crashed my endocrine system. And I waited a year, took clomiphene. I had a doctor I was working with. He was an andrologist. And we tried to get my natural testosterone levels back up again. I was already in my 40s. So, it wasn't like as though I was ever going to have children again. I had my children. And it took me a year to make the decision that I couldn't get my testosterone levels up very far from 400. And I didn't feel right. I had insomnia. I would wake up in the middle of the night with menopause type symptoms, cold sweats, anxiety, subjective tremor. I felt like I felt like I was vibrating, but no one could see it. When they touched my hand, they couldn't feel it. And I remember one night driving myself to the emergency room, and I was so cold, and they just wrapped me up and waited for a while, and my body temperature came back up. But that was all from disrupting my endocrine system. And so I finally made the decision, and a good doctor prescribed 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate a week for me. And in 2 weeks, this is the story I told on the show. I said, imagine living in a warehouse, and there's 100 light bulbs in the roof of this warehouse. When the warehouse is lit up, it's so bright. And then imagine every year just one bulb goes out. The transition from year to year is not even noticeable. But then at 42 years old, 43 years old, somebody comes in and puts all the dead bulbs, replaces them with new bulbs. And when you turn on the light, you go, oh my God, is this how bright it used to be in here? I don't even recognize the place anymore. That was what happened to me when I went on testosterone. I felt like I felt like a different person. I really did. And that was miraculous for me. And that's when I really started to become more interested in the role hormones play. Our bodies will hold themselves together when we are in the reproductive years of our lives. But when testosterone starts to dip, the body goes, oh yeah, you're not having any more kids. And so the body starts not to take care of stuff, doesn't fix broken things as well. And you start the other side of the hill of your life. By keeping testosterone levels high, your body thinks, oh, he's still virile. This guy can father a kid, no problem. And it keeps repairing stuff. That's been my personal experience. Now, I have to believe you've heard other stories like this from men.
Yeah, absolutely. We hear stories like yours all the time. And your story matches up with the clinical literature. We know that men's testosterone levels drop by 1% every year after 30, and that's a cumulative effect. So you can imagine, what sort of effect that has once you hit your mid 40s, 50s, and so on. And there's a lot of other benefits in terms of the mental effects and the libido, but also, potential longevity benefits from having optimal testosterone levels, including the downstream metabolism into estradiol and DHT for longevity, bone mineral density, and overall health and well-being.
So at Marek Health, if one of my audience members contacts Marek Health, and what we're doing is we're asking them here, let me put this placard up again. We're asking them to actually go to the website to get started. That's the right way to get started, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Marek has our core offering or core service is a concierge health coaching platform that connects you to expert medical providers from the comfort of your phone. So we'll help you get connected with high quality diagnostic lab work. And this is the first step in the process. We have a machine learning algorithm that takes your diagnostic lab results, whether that's serum blood testing, urine analysis, dried urine, saliva, or genetic analysis, and spits out a 30, 40, 50-page report describing each of your lab markers with actionable recommendations for change. We then sit down and go through those lab results with you, make sure you understand them. I truly think that education is one of the most important parts of sustainable health transformations, whether that's TLT or otherwise. And then we connect you with an expert medical provider via Zoom. And our physicians, most of them are bodybuilders. Most of them are on TLT already. So they have a ton of experience in this domain, both personally and with clients. And they're able to set you up with a protocol that is highly individualized to you and your goals.
Does your computer system apply some sort of artificial intelligence algorithm to prescribe, to show what people need to do?
We have a machine learning algorithm that recommends treatments based on your individual lab markers, your symptoms, your goals. However, ultimately, the decisions come down to those expert medical providers you meet with later on in the process.
So you really shouldn't just trust machines to spit out a report. It's like going into court and here's your case. If you have a computer programming judging that case, you may go to jail for something that you really shouldn't. It takes human decisions, so to speak, to make sure that you're making the right move, so to speak, right? I mean, you can't just trust a program to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the report that it spits out is mostly to educate you on where your levels are at right now, potential treatment options, and then you'll meet with a medical provider who will sit down with you, go through that report, go over your symptoms, your goals, and put together an individualized plan.
Yeah, because there's a company right now promoting medical treatment based on artificial intelligence algorithms that they feed your stuff in, don't put the same symptoms for a given condition. Sometimes people don't present any symptoms. Sometimes people present symptoms when the levels don't indicate that symptom should be present because everybody's unique. And so it scares me to think that a machine is going to diagnose and tell me what to do without really playing into the sensitivity of the patient. We keep talking about individualized medicine. Well, individualized medicine means working with that person one-on-one and making decisions with them. Not like, oh, this thing said you need to do this now. This is what you need to do because the machine said so.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you're saying. I think that's why Marek Health has been so successful. So we know that a traditional doctor's visit, it only goes for a few minutes and they're trying to kick you out to get to the next patient. At Marek Health, we sit down with you via Zoom. We take the time to get to know your health history, your symptoms, your goals, and again, put together a very detailed and individualized protocol to help you reach your goals.
Are there states that are not able to use Marek? I think New York used to have some really strict telemedicine laws, but that may have changed after COVID. Are there any states that you can't work with?
Yeah, Marek Health works in all 50 states. We have physicians licensed across the board. There are some issues sometimes getting lab work done in New York. However, we have a full phlebotomy network now in New York to make that easy. So we could have a phlebotomist come out to your house and give you a full VIP treatment.
Interesting. Are your lab costs competitive? Let's say somebody just wants to run their labs through you and they want to work with their own doctor. Maybe there's some issues with insurance, so they want to just go cash.
Yeah, I think giving access to affordable diagnostic testing is one of the most important first steps to moving away from the sick care model in the US. And that's our second core service offering is we have a la carte lab. We call it self-service labs on our website. You can go there, you can select any test you want, whether that you want to test your fasting insulin level or you want to learn what your testosterone level is. You can go to our website, you can order the tests you need, and then we will make that process as seamless as possible for you by helping you get set up at a LabCorp location for a blood draw and then getting the results out to you as soon as possible.
Now, this is something different that you don't see. There's lots of companies on Instagram and such advertising, TRT, OTRT, but they don't treat type 2 diabetes. They don't treat other health issues. They're just a TRT mill, if you would. But you guys will treat people with high blood pressure. You'll work with them as the primary reason that they reach out to you, right? I mean, you really are a primary care physician nationwide program, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are a preventative medicine platform. So we're focused on all aspects of health. One big part of that is hormonal optimization, but it's also, medical weight loss using cutting edge protocols like semaglutide or the newly released tirzepatide, for example. It's novel nootropic formulas. It's cutting edge peptide therapies, as well as traditional medicine, blood pressure management, diabetes care. We really have a very broad scope. Our mission is to help our clients look, feel, and perform at their best year round. And we have medical providers from all backgrounds to help clients achieve whatever their goals are.
Now, since the advent of concierge care, I've had a concierge physician for 10 years now. The model, the payee model, is what people get distracted by. They're like, wait a minute, do you file my insurance for me? No, we don't do that. You can file, in many cases, you can file, or if you are proactive enough and capable of setting up I'm going to forget the name of it now, the health savings account, an HSA. If you have an HSA, you can pay with your HSA credit card, and then your HSA administrator will manage it and use your insurance to recover it. So if someone comes to you and says, well, I want testosterone therapy, but I do have type 2 diabetes right now, and I don't want to talk about hair loss because I'm losing a lot of hair. You guys can do all of that and bill the patient, and the patient uses their HSA account to pay the bill, right? That's a qualified approach?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we work with both HSA and FSA insurance.
Interesting. Because most of these concierge doctors, they just want you to write them a check. They don't care how you get paid back, but they can use HSA with you. That's fantastic. That really is good. Talk about the hair loss. It's a big issue with men today, right? Especially we have a lot of men getting divorced. They're going to be back on the dating scene. Maybe they don't want hair plugs. They're looking for other alternatives. What kind of treatments do you use for hair loss?
Unfortunately, there's been no real big movers in the hair loss space in terms of treatment modalities for quite some time. It's still, quote unquote, the big three. So we're looking at a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. So commonly we talk about finasteride or dutasteride. I'm a big fan of topical dutasteride, as it doesn't seem to cause the same systemic inhibition of 5-alpha reductase as an oral version. And we know that 5-alpha reductase isn't only responsible for the conversion of testosterone to DHT, but it's also responsible for the conversion of different neurosteroids like progesterone into allopregnanolone. And we know that low levels of allopregnanolone can cause symptoms of anxiety, depression, poor sleep. So one treatment modality we use frequently is a topical combination of a topical dutasteride with minoxidil, and then we also commonly recommend a ketoconazole shampoo. So they're kind of the big three. We're blocking the DHT production through the topical dutasteride. We're causing some hair growth agonism through minoxidil, and then ketoconazole has some antifungal properties, which can sometimes cause hair loss, as well as some topical anti-androgen effects.
So one of the things I talked about on my show years ago, and I actually have had people reach out to me and say they did it long enough for it to work. GHKCU, the copper peptide, and a dermaroller that has like little spikes, if you will, or bristles, if you will, that it's just designed to just puncture the top of the skin. You squirt the reconstituted GHKCU on the area, and then you take that little wheel and you roll it over it like you're painting with a roller, and it punctures the skin and it pushes the GHKCU. It was just funny I'm talking about this because a guy just reached out to me on Facebook Messenger a week or so ago and said it's working for him. He's been doing it for a few months. Investigate this because you can do it at home. You guys are already in the peptide space. GHKCU is a relatively inexpensive peptide to use, and it will regrow hair. And that original research has to be translated from French, but the original research was from a French scientist about 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 20 years ago, GHKCU.
We have lots of more novel treatments for hair loss as well, and GHK copper peptides is one that we recommend frequently. We also commonly recommend the use of the Derminator 2, which is a machine that punctures the scalp, which is different to rolling the scalp. It seems that when you roll over the scalp, you can create kind of hairs in the skin, whereas a machine that punctures them out seems to potentially be a little bit of a safer way to improve.
Because think about it. If the bristle isn't entering completely perpendicular to the scalp, that perpendicular to the scalp makes a punch hole. That's it. But because of the way the spike rolls with the roller, you're kind of tearing in, elongating, and then coming out, and you're probably pulling flesh out as it rolls past. So that makes a lot of sense. That's not as good. They call it. So do you guys offer that? Can men contact you and get the Derminator and the GHKCU?
Yeah, we recommend those treatments very frequently, and we've seen, similar to your guest who reached out to you on Facebook, we've seen tremendous results.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Is it very expensive in comparison to other TRT programs to deal with Marek Health?
This is a premium service. There's no set cost. Essentially, we have a la carte model where we're going to sit down with you. We're going to provide you with the potential options, and we'll work with you to try to find solutions that fit your budget. But it is a more premium service. It's a concierge medicine service. You have a health coach, an accountability partner, and our physicians really do take their time to sit down with you and come up with personalized protocols.
In fact, I think I'm supposed to order some labs as part of the campaign here. So I'm going to probably order them. Who will come back on the show and talk about my labs? Will you?
That's completely up to you. We have a bunch of medical providers who would be more than happy to, or I would be more than happy to come back on and meet with you and go over them with you.
I've purposely dropped my testosterone dose to 250 a week because I want to get my testosterone levels into a more physiological, appropriate zone before I do this. Because I did a test once before with another company, and at the time I was doing 750 milligrams a week of testosterone cypionate, and my levels were like 5,000 and something. So I don't want to portray that side of me anymore. Oh, there you go. All right, look, this is fascinating. This is a great company. I have searched long hard to find a company to do business with in this space, because I get contacted all the time by men specifically who are saying, I want to get on testosterone. My doctor says I don't need it. What do I do? And then they stop. They call a couple doctors in their area, and then they give up. And that's very sad, because they have no idea the quality of life improvement that they're missing out on. shrnetwork.biz/Marek, MAREK health, HEALTH, one word. Use the code SHR to save 10% off your first order. Contact them, talk to them, see if they are what your needs are. But now we have a partner in this space, and this is a true primary care physician relationship. This is not a steroid mill or anything of the sort. So give them a try, show them some love. I always say that if you love the content that we produce here, you know how to thank me, and that is always patronize the sponsors of the show. Thanks for being here today, Memo.
Thanks, Carl. Really enjoyed it.
Take care, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. I'm only doing 2 shows this week, Monday and Tuesday, because I have a lot of cooking to do. We're Italian, and we cook a lot for the holidays. I'll be cooking for days. But we'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thanks for being here today, and see you soon. Memo, hold.
Hey, Carl.
I didn't even think to ask this. See, can you hear me, Memo?
Now I can.
Oh, okay. Do you work with women?
Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of women we work with for both hormone replacement therapy for postmenopausal women, but we also frequently see hormonal dysregulation in women taking hormonal contraceptives. And we've had a tremendous amount of success helping those women improve hormonal deficiencies caused by those combined oral contraceptive pills.
So there you go, Chrissy. Reach out to them and tell them your story and see what they can do for you. And all the women in the audience, please. I forgot. I feel so bad for not about women. And let me make sure that, let me see if she's responded. Okay, thanks. She says she'll check it out. Okay. Sorry about that, Chrissy. I really feel bad about not asking about women. So you know what? We'll do another show and we'll just focus on women's needs exclusively. How's that sound? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds
all right,
great.
Now, after that false ending, we're going to say goodbye. See you tomorrow.